Dr. Kim Tae-won wiped the sweat from his forehead as he looked across the medical station. The sounds of battle echoed in the distance, but inside the white walls of the emergency treatment center, there was only the steady beep of machines and the quiet voices of his team working to save lives. "Doctor, we have 3 more coming in," called Nurse Lee So-min from the entrance. Her uniform was already stained with blood from the morning's work, but her hands remained steady as she prepared the next bed. Kim nodded and moved to help. First patient was a young human colonist, maybe 20 years old, with burns across his chest. The second was an elderly Zentari woman, her blue skin pale from blood loss. The third made Kim pause for just a moment. It was a Vorthic soldier, the same species that was currently attacking their colony. "Put him on bed 7, Kim said without hesitation. So-min looked at him with respect. This was why she had followed him to New Bizen Colony. Dr. Kim Tae-won never saw enemies, only patients. The Vorthic soldier was unconscious, his gray skin torn by shrapnel. Kim began working immediately, cleaning the wounds and checking for internal damage. The soldier's breathing was shallow, but steady. He would live if Kim could stop the bleeding in time. "Why do you help him?" asked Park Jin-woo, the youngest member of their team. The medic was only 2 years out of medical school, still learning the hard lessons of field medicine. "Because he is hurt," Kim replied simply, not looking up from his work. "That is all. That matters here." Jin-woo watched his mentor work. The young medic had joined the Terran Medical Corps because he believed in peace between species. He wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be more than warriors. Here, watching Kim save the life of an enemy soldier, he saw that dream becoming real. The medical station had been built 3 years ago when New Bizen was first settled. It was a joint colony, home to humans, Zentari, and even some peaceful Vorthic families who had left their war-loving empire behind. The building was designed to be neutral ground, painted white with large red crosses that could be seen from space. Kim finished with the Vorthic soldier and moved to the next patient. All around him, his team worked with the same dedication. So-min was treating a Zentari child who had been caught in the bombing. Her movements were gentle but quick, her voice soft as she spoke to calm the frightened girl. "It will be okay, little one," So-min whispered in perfect Zentari. "We will take care of you." The child looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes. So-min had learned 6 different languages since joining the medical corps. She said it helped her do her job better, but Kim knew the truth. She genuinely cared about every patient who came through their doors. Outside, the battle was getting closer. Kim could hear the heavy footsteps of Vorthic war machines moving through the colony streets. The attack had started 3 days ago without warning. The Vorthic Empire had claimed that New Bizen was a military threat, but everyone knew the truth. They wanted the colony's rich mining deposits. "Dr. Kim," called a voice from the communication station. It was Captain Yoon Da-hai of the Terran Defense Force. Her image appeared on the screen, her face tight with worry. "Captain," Kim replied, still working on his patient. "We're getting reports that Vorthic forces are moving toward your position. You need to evacuate now." Kim looked around the medical station. There were 30 patients in beds, some too injured to move. The Vorthic soldier he had just treated was among them. "Negative, Captain. We have patients who cannot be moved. We stay." "Doctor, this is not a request. I'm ordering you to evacuate. With respect, Captain, you have no authority over medical operations. The Terran doctrine protects us. We are neutral." Ground. Yoon's jaw tightened. She knew Kim was right. The Terran doctrine had been written into galactic law 50 years ago. It stated that human medical personnel were neutral in all conflicts. They could not be attacked, and they could not be ordered to abandon their patients. "I understand, Doctor. But please be careful." The Vorthik have never faced the doctrine before. They might not respect it. Kim nodded. We will be fine, Captain. We are doctors, not soldiers. Even the Vorthik understand the difference. The transmission ended, and Kim returned to his work. Around him, the medical station continued its mission. Human doctors worked alongside Centauri healers, and even a few reformed Vorthik who had joined their cause. The species that were fighting outside worked together inside the white walls. As the day wore on, more wounded arrived. Some were colonists, caught in the fighting. Others were soldiers from both sides. The medical team treated them all the same. They checked wounds, gave medicine, and spoke words of comfort in whatever language the patient needed to hear. Jin-Woo found himself working beside the Vorthik soldier Kim had saved earlier. The soldier was awake now, his eyes filled with confusion. Why? The soldier asked in broken human language. Why help me? Jin-Woo smiled and adjusted the soldier's bandages. Because you are hurt, that is enough. The soldier stared at him for a long moment. In his empire, enemies were killed, not healed. The concept of helping someone who had been trying to kill you was completely foreign to him. I do not understand. Humans, the soldier said quietly. That is okay, Jin-Woo replied. Maybe after you get better, you will learn. As night fell over New Bizon, the medical station glowed like a beacon in the darkness. The red crosses on its walls were lit by floodlights, visible to anyone in the area. Inside, the work continued. Kim had been awake for 18 hours straight, but he showed no signs of stopping. So Min brought him a cup of coffee and a protein bar. You need to eat, doctor. After the next patient, Kim said, the same thing he had been saying all day. She smiled and shook her head. This was Dr. Kim Tae-won. He would work until he collapsed if it meant saving one more life. It was what made him the best doctor in the medical corps, and what made his team follow him anywhere. Outside, the sounds of battle continued. But inside the medical station, there was peace. Humans, Centauri, and Vorthik lay in beds side by side, all receiving the same care, all treated with the same compassion. It was exactly what the Terran Medical Corps had been created for, to show the galaxy that there was another way. That healing was stronger than hatred. That mercy was more powerful than war. None of them knew that in just a few hours, everything would change forever. War Commander Vexstar stood in his command ship, watching the battlefield below through the main viewing screen. 3 days of fighting, and the human colony still refused to surrender. His forces had taken most of the outer settlements, but the main colony held strong behind its defensive shields. Commander, his aide approached carefully. Our casualty reports show heavy losses. The humans are fighting harder than expected. Vexstar's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the tactical display. Red dots showed his forces, blue dots showed the enemy. But there were also white dots scattered throughout the battlefield. Medical stations, places where his wounded soldiers were being taken and treated by human doctors. Explain this to me, he growled, pointing at the white markers. Sir, those are human medical facilities. They treat wounded from both sides. It is part of their doctrine. They heal our soldiers? Yes, Commander. Our scouts report that Vorthik wounded are receiving the same treatment as human casualties. Some of our soldiers say the human doctors saved their lives. Vexstar found this information disturbing. In the Vorthik Empire, enemies were killed, not healed. The weak were left to die so the strong could survive. This human behavior made no sense to him. Are these medical facilities military targets? He asked. His aide shifted uncomfortably. According to galactic law, no, sir. The Terran doctrine specifically protects human medical personnel. They are considered neutral in all conflicts. Neutral. Vexstar repeated the word like it tasted bad. Nothing is neutral in war. He turned away from the viewing screen and walked to his private chambers. For 3 days, he had watched his forces struggle against an enemy that should have been easy. To defeat, the humans had fewer ships, fewer soldiers, fewer weapons. But they fought with a determination that surprised him. Now he was learning that they also healed their enemies. It was weakness, he decided. Disgusting, pathetic weakness that had no place in the universe. In his chambers, Vextar opened a secure communication channel to his 3 ground commanders. "Report," he ordered. The first commander appeared on screen, his armor scorched from battle. "Sir, we control 60% of the colony, but our advance has slowed. The humans have established defensive positions around their medical facilities." "Medical facilities?" Vextar spat. "Why do they matter?" "Sir, many of our wounded are being treated there. The human doctors, they are very skilled. They have saved soldiers who would have died otherwise." The second commander joined the conversation. "Commander Vextar, I must report something strange. Yesterday, my unit was caught in an ambush. 3 of my soldiers were badly hurt. Human medics came into the battle zone under fire to rescue them. They carried our soldiers to safety alongside their own wounded." Vextar felt his rage building. "They what?" "They saved our soldiers, sir. Risked their own lives to do it." The third commander nodded in agreement. "My forces have seen the same thing. The human medical teams treat everyone the same. They do not see enemies, only injured people who need help. This ends now," Vextar declared. "Their compassion is making our soldiers weak. They start to see humans as friends instead of enemies. It corrupts the fighting spirit." His commanders looked uncertain. "Sir, what are your orders?" Vextar studied the tactical display once more. The white dots representing medical stations seemed to mock him. They were the source of human strength, he realized. Not their weapons or their ships, but their ability to make others believe in their goodness. "Destroy them," he said quietly. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, one commander spoke up. "Sir, galactic law forbids attacking medical facilities. If we do this, the entire galaxy will turn against us." "The galaxy is already against." "U.S.," Vextar replied. "They have been since we began expanding our empire. What matters is victory. And these medical stations are preventing our victory." "But sir, our own wounded are in those facilities." "Then they will die as warriors should, in battle." Another long silence. Vextar could see the doubt in his commanders' faces, but he did not care. He had made his decision. "Sir," the first commander said carefully, "perhaps we should reconsider. The humans have shown mercy to our soldiers. Should we not show the same?" Vextar's rage exploded. "Mercy is weakness. The humans think their compassion makes them strong, but it makes them vulnerable. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who try to heal their enemies instead of destroying them." He began issuing specific orders. The 3 largest medical stations would be hit simultaneously. The attacks would come without warning, giving the humans no time to evacuate. It would be quick, efficient, and final. "Prepare plasma bombardment for coordinates Alpha, Beta, and Gamma," he commanded. "Target the medical facilities. Full power." His commanders exchanged glances, but began following orders. Within an hour, 3 Vorthek battleships had moved into position above New Bizan colony. Their plasma cannons charged with deadly energy. In the medical station, Dr. Kim Tae-won was checking on his patients when the first alarm sounded. It was not the usual battle alert. This was different, sharper, more urgent. "What is that?" asked Jin Woo, looking up from the patient he was treating. So Min checked her communication device. Her face went pale. "Incoming bombardment. All medical stations are being targeted." Kim felt his blood turn cold. That is impossible. We are protected by the Terran doctrine. They cannot attack medical facilities. Doctor, So-Min's voice was barely a whisper. They are not following galactic law. Through the medical station's windows, they could see the Vorthic ships above. The plasma cannons were glowing brighter, preparing to fire. Kim looked around at his patients. Humans, Centauri, and Vorthic soldiers all lay in beds, trusting in the protection of the white walls and red crosses. They believed they were safe. Evacuate everyone we can move, Kim ordered. Now. His team sprang into action, but there was not enough time. 30 patients, and only minutes to save them. Some were too injured to be moved. Others were connected to life support machines that could not be disconnected quickly. Kim ran to the Vorthic soldier he had saved the day before. The soldier was awake, fear in his eyes as he understood what was happening. Your people are going to attack this place, Kim said urgently. Can you walk? The soldier tried to sit up, but fell back. His wounds still too fresh. I cannot. Doctor, why are they doing this? Kim had no answer. He grabbed the soldier's bed and began pushing it toward the exit, along with So-Min and Jin Woo, who were moving other patients. The first plasma blast hit the Eastern Medical Station. The explosion was visible from space, a bright flash that turned night into day for a few seconds. Then there was only burning debris where the building had stood. Faster! Kim shouted, but they all knew it was hopeless. The second blast destroyed the northern facility. Kim could see the flames rising into the sky. More doctors dead. More patients killed while seeking healing. Jin Woo was helping a Centauri child when he saw the third ship's cannons beginning to glow. Their medical station was next. Dr. Kim. He called out. Kim turned and saw the young medic pushing the child toward the exit. There was not enough time for both of them to escape. Jin Woo made his choice. He threw the child into So-Min's arms and then turned back. The plasma blast hit their building directly. The explosion consumed everything. The white walls, the red crosses, the beds where enemies had been healed side by side. Dr. Kim Tae-won died trying to shield the Vorthic soldier from falling debris. Lee So-Min was killed protecting patients in the hallway. Park Jin-woo's last act was saving an alien child. In space, Captain Yoon Da-hai watched the medical stations burn. Her hands gripped the arms of her command chair so tightly that her knuckles were white. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, we are receiving surrender requests from Vorthic soldiers throughout the colony. They ... They do not want to fight anymore. Yoon understood. The soldiers had seen human compassion firsthand. They had been healed by the very people they were supposed to kill. And now they had watched their own commanders murder those healers. Captain, another officer reported, Admiral Choi is requesting immediate communication. Yoon nodded, though she could not take her eyes off the burning medical stations below. When Admiral Choi's face appeared on her screen, she could see that. He had been watching the same feeds. Captain Yoon. The Admiral's voice was perfectly controlled, but his eyes held something she had never seen before. Return to Terra Prime immediately. Leave the colony defense to the remaining forces. Sir, the colonists still need protection. The colonists will be fine. The Vorthic soldiers are surrendering. Their commanders have made a mistake that will end their empire. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was different. Colder. We have other work to do now. The transmission ended, leaving Yoon staring at the burning colony below. She understood what the Admiral meant, even if she did not want to believe it. The Vorthic had just awakened, something in humanity that had been sleeping for a very long time. President Han Dong-sik stood before the Terran assembly, his face grave as he looked out at the representatives from every human world. The great hall was silent, waiting for his words. Behind him, a massive screen showed the smoking ruins of the medical stations on New Bizan. "Fellow humans," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. 3 days ago, the Vorthic Empire committed an act that has no equal in galactic history. They deliberately targeted and destroyed medical facilities. They murdered doctors and nurses who were treating their own wounded soldiers. Murmurs rippled through the assembly, but Han raised his hand for silence. Dr. Kim Tae-won, Nurse Lee So-min, Medic Park Jin-woo, and 47 other medical personnel died while trying to save lives. They died doing what we have taught the galaxy to respect about humanity. They died showing mercy to their enemies. Han paused, letting the weight of those words settle over the assembly. The Galactic Council has issued a statement condemning these attacks. They have called for sanctions and diplomatic pressure. They believe that words and economic penalties will be enough to address this crime. He turned to face the screen behind him, showing the burned medical stations. They are wrong. The silence in the assembly hall was complete now. For 50 years, we have shown the galaxy our best face. We have been healers, teachers, and peacemakers. We have followed every law, respected every treaty, and helped every species that asked for our aid. We did this because we believed that compassion was our greatest strength. Han turned back to face the assembly. We were right. Compassion is our greatest strength. But the Vorthic have shown us something important. They have shown us what happens when compassion is met with cruelty, when mercy is answered with murder. He paused again, and when he spoke, his voice was harder. Today, I am suspending the Terran Medical Corps' Universal Aid Doctrine. From this moment forward, human medical personnel will treat only humans and our allies until further notice. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Universal Aid Doctrine had been the foundation of human galactic policy for half a century. Furthermore, I am authorizing the activation of Protocol 7. The gasps turned into shocked silence. Many of the representatives had never heard of Protocol 7. Those who knew of it had thought it was just a rumor. General Shin Woo-jin will brief you on the details, but I will say this. For 50 years, we have shown the galaxy what humans can create. Now they will learn what humans can destroy. Han stepped back as General Shin took the podium. The old soldier looked out at the assembly with cold eyes. Protocol 7 was designed 50 years ago by the founders of our galactic policy. They understood that our compassion would be seen as weakness by some species. They prepared for the day when that compassion would be attacked. He activated a holographic display that showed the structure of the Terran military. What the galaxy sees as our defense force, ships and soldiers designed to protect our worlds and colonies. What they do not see is the executioners. The display changed to show sleek, dark ships that looked nothing like the familiar white and blue vessels of the defense force. For 50 years, we have been building and training in secret. Every doctor who could not save a patient and broke under the pressure. Every nurse who watched too many people die. Every medic who was driven mad by the horrors of war. We did not discharge them. We retrained them. General Shin's voice was emotionless as he explained. The same hands that can perform microsurgery can also disable life support systems. The same minds that understand anatomy can also find the weakest points in enemy defenses. The same people who dedicated their lives to preserving life can become the most efficient killers in the galaxy when that dedication is betrayed. The display showed images of training facilities hidden on remote worlds. Humans learning combat techniques, weapon systems, and infiltration methods that surpassed anything used by other species. Commander Ko Min-ho leads the executioners. He was once the chief surgeon at Terra Prime Medical Center. He saved over 10,000 lives in his career. Then he watched a terrorist attack kill 300 patients in his hospital. The experience broke him, but it also made him into something else. Another image appeared, showing a man in black armor that seemed to absorb light. The executioners have been waiting for this day. They have studied every species in the galaxy. They know their weaknesses, their fears, and their vulnerabilities. They have been patient, but they have never forgotten why they exist. General Shin looked directly at the assembly. The Vorthic wanted to see what happens when you attack human compassion. They are about to find out. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Choi Byung-ho sat in his private quarters aboard the flagship of the Terran fleet. The recorded images of the medical station attacks played on his screen for the 100th time. Each viewing made the pain in his chest grow deeper. His aide, Colonel Nam Ji-hai, entered quietly and placed a cup of tea on his desk. "Admiral, the fleet commanders are requesting orders." Choi turned off the recording and looked at her. Ji-hai had served with him for 15 years. She had seen him through battles, political crises, and personal tragedies. But she had never seen him like this. "Ji-hai, do you remember why I joined the fleet?" "Yes, sir. You wanted to protect the medical ships during the Centauri War. My sister was a nurse on one of those ships. She died trying to evacuate wounded soldiers when pirates attacked her vessel." He picked up the cup of tea, but did not drink. "I swore that day that I would never let harm come to our healers again. Sir, you have kept that promise." The medical corps has operated safely for decades under fleet protection. Choi shook his head. "I failed them, Ji-hai. I failed my sister, and I failed Dr. Kim and his team. I was too far away, too slow to respond. Admiral, there was nothing you could do. The attacks came without warning. There is something I can do now." He stood and walked to his private safe, entering a code that he had never used before. Inside was a sealed envelope marked with the symbol of Protocol 7. Ji-hai's eyes widened as she recognized the marking. "Sir, are you certain? Open fleet communications? I want to speak to every ship captain, every marine commander, every pilot in the Terran fleet." Within minutes, thousands of faces appeared on screens throughout the fleet. Choi looked at each one, seeing his own pain reflected in their eyes. "You have all seen what happened on New Bizem. You know that our doctors, our nurses, our medics were murdered while treating enemy wounded. You know that they died upholding the values that make us human." He paused, letting his words sink in. "For 50 years, we have been the shield that protects the healers. Today, we become the sword that avenges them." He broke the seal on the envelope and pulled out orders that had been written decades ago, but never used. "Operation Hippocrates is now active. You will receive new mission parameters within the hour. Some of you will be confused by these orders. Some will be shocked by what we are asking you to do. Remember this. We are not abandoning our humanity. We are protecting it." Across human space, the transformation began. Sleek black ships emerged from hidden bases and joined the familiar white and blue vessels of the Defense Force. Soldiers who had thought they were retired received activation codes they had hoped never to use. Captain Yoon Da-hai, now promoted to Admiral after her defense of New Bizem, stood on the bridge of her new flagship. It was not like any ship she had commanded before. This vessel was built for war in ways that made traditional warships look primitive. "Admiral," her new tactical officer reported, "all executioner units are reporting ready status." Yoon nodded, though part of her still could not believe this was happening. 2 weeks ago, she had been a simple Defense Force captain protecting colonies and medical ships. Now she commanded technologies and weapons that she had not known existed. "Set course for Vorthic space," she ordered. "Ma'am, which target should we hit first?" Yoon looked at the tactical display showing the Vorthic Empire. Dozens of worlds, millions of soldiers, an entire civilization built on conquest and cruelty. All of them, she said quietly. Behind her, the tactical officer began calculating firing solutions for weapons that could crack planets. Around the bridge, her crew prepared systems that had been designed by minds that understood both healing and harming in ways no other species could match. The Vorthik had wanted to see what humans would do when their compassion was attacked. They were about to learn that the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy was a healer who had been forced to stop healing. The first sign that something was wrong came when the Vorthik supply convoy to the Kepler system simply vanished. One day the ships were on their regular route. The next day they were gone. No distress signals, no debris, no survivors. They had simply stopped existing. War. Commander Vextar studied the reports in his command center, his 4 eyes moving between different screens, showing empty space where his ship should have been. How does an entire convoy disappear? He demanded of his intelligence officer. Sir, we are investigating. There are no signs of battle, no weapon signatures, no. The officer was interrupted by an urgent communication from the outer rim. Another convoy had vanished. Then another report came in from the core worlds. A supply depot had gone silent. No one was answering communications. Within 6 hours, 12 separate Vorthik installations had lost contact with command. Each had simply stopped responding, as if everyone inside had suddenly died or disappeared. Sir, his communications officer reported with fear in her voice. We just lost contact with the Zephyr military base. That is our largest weapons manufacturing facility. Vextar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. A base housed 50,000 soldiers and civilians. It had shields that could withstand planetary bombardment and defenses that had never been breached. Send a reconnaissance ship immediately. When the scout ship arrived at Zephyr Base, it found something that made the pilot's blood freeze. The base was intact. The shields were still up. The defenses were still active. But there was no one inside. Every single person in the facility had vanished. Soldiers, workers, commanders, maintenance staff, all gone. Security cameras showed them going about their normal duties 1 minute, and empty corridors the next. The only clue was a message left on the main command screen, written in perfect Vorthik script. You should not have touched the healers. Similar messages began appearing across the Vorthik Empire. Bases would go silent, and when they were investigated, everyone inside would be gone. Always the same message. Always the same. Perfect disappearance. On the Executioner command ship, Dr. An Soo-jin reviewed the mission reports with satisfaction. She had been a trauma surgeon for 15 years before joining the Executioners. She understood life support systems, atmospheric controls, and biological functions better than any Vorthik engineer. Target 17 is secure, she reported to Commander Ko Ming-ho. All personnel removed for interrogation. Ko nodded from his position at the tactical station. He was a small man, barely 170 centimeters tall, but his presence filled the bridge. The other executioners followed his orders without question. Casualties? He asked. None on our side. The Vorthik are unharmed, but unconscious. They will wake, up in the detention facilities on Titan Base. This was the executioner way. They did not kill unless absolutely necessary. Instead, they used their medical knowledge to render enemies unconscious with precise gas mixtures that left no permanent damage. Entire military bases could be cleared in minutes without firing a single weapon. Dr. An, prepare Team 7 for the next target. We are going after War Commander Vextar himself. Soo-jin smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. It will be my pleasure, Commander. Meanwhile, Admiral Yoon Da-hai was conducting her own form of warfare in the main Vorthik territory. Her fleet had not engaged in a single traditional battle, but the Vorthic Empire was crumbling around them. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "the Vorthic Fourth Fleet is requesting surrender." "Denied," Yoon replied without looking up. From her command display, "Disable their engines and leave them adrift. Do not harm the crew." This had become the pattern. Human ships would appear as if from nowhere, disable Vorthak vessels with weapons that seemed to cut through shields like. They were not there, and then disappear again. The Vorthic crews would be left alive, but helpless, floating in space until rescue ships could find them. The psychological effect was devastating. Vorthic soldiers began to understand that humans were not trying to kill them. They were being toyed with, disabled, and humiliated, but left alive. It was worse than death for a warrior culture. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They want to speak with you directly." Yoon sighed. She had been expecting this call. "Put them through." A face of Ambassador Veltar, a Zentari diplomat, appeared on the main screen. His blue skin was pale with worry. "Admiral Yoon, the Council is deeply concerned about human military actions in Vorthic space. Your fleet has attacked dozens of installations without provocation." "Without provocation?" Yoon's voice was dangerously quiet. "Ambassador, did you not see the footage of our medical stations being destroyed?" "Of course, and the Council condemns those attacks. But your response is disproportionate. You are destroying an entire empire over the actions of one commander." Yoon stood and walked closer to the screen. "Ambassador, let me explain something to you. For 50 years, we have followed every galactic law. We have treated every species with respect. We have healed your wounded and protected your weak. In return, you have called us naive and soft." She paused, her eyes hard as steel. "Now you see what humans are capable of when we are not being naive and soft, and you are afraid. Admiral, please. The Council can mediate this dispute. There is no need for further violence." "There has been no violence, Ambassador. We have not killed a single Vorthic soldier. We have simply removed their ability to make war. That is what you call surgical precision." The transmission ended, leaving Yoon alone with her thoughts. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work with quiet efficiency. They understood what they were doing and why it was necessary. On the Vorthic homeworld, panic was beginning to spread. Reports came in hourly of more installations going silent, more fleets being disabled, more commanders simply disappearing. The empire that had seemed so strong just weeks ago was falling apart without a single decisive battle. War Commander Vex Tar found himself effectively trapped in his own command ship. 3 of his escort vessels had gone silent during the night. His communications with other fleets had been cut off. He was alone in space with a crew that was growing more frightened by the hour. "Commander," his aide approached nervously, "we have lost contact with High Command. The Capital Defense Fleet is not responding." Vextar closed his 4 eyes and tried to think. This was not how war was supposed to work. Enemies were supposed to fight with weapons and ships and soldiers. They were supposed to meet on battlefields and test their strength against each other. Instead, the humans were doing something else entirely. They were dismantling his empire piece by piece, like surgeons removing a cancer. They were not angry or brutal. They were calm, precise, and terrifyingly efficient. A new report arrived that made his blood freeze. The Vorthic homeworld itself had gone silent. The planetary defense grid was intact, but no one was responding to communications. "Sir," his communications officer said in a voice barely above a whisper, "we are receiving a transmission. It is addressed to you personally." The main screen activated, showing a human woman in black armor. She was small and looked harmless, but her eyes held something that made Vextar step backward. War Commander Vexstar, she said in perfect Vorthic. I am Dr. Ansu Jin of the Terran Executioners. I believe you have something that belongs to me. I do not understand, Vexstar replied, trying to keep his voice steady. You ordered the attack on our medical stations. You killed Dr. Kim Tae-won, Nurse Lee So-min, and Medic Park Jin-woo. They were healers, just like I used to be. She paused, and her smile was colder than the vacuum of space. I want to show you something, Commander. Your homeworld is intact. Your people are alive. But they are all asleep, breathing a special gas mixture that I designed personally. They will wake up in a few hours with nothing more than mild headaches. The screen showed images of the Vorthic homeworld. Streets full of unconscious people, military bases with soldiers lying peacefully on the ground, government buildings with officials slumped over their desks. You see, Commander, we could have killed them all. It would have been easy. Instead, we chose mercy, just like our doctors chose mercy when they treated your wounded soldiers. Vexstar felt his legs give out. He collapsed into his command chair, staring at the impossible images on his screen. Now, Commander, you are going to surrender your entire empire to us. Not because we are threatening to destroy it, but because we have already taken it. The only question is whether you want to be conscious when you do it, or whether you would prefer to take a little nap like everyone else. The transmission ended, leaving Vexstar alone with a terrible understanding of what he had unleashed. He had attacked the healers, thinking it would show human weakness. Instead, he had learned that the most terrifying thing in the galaxy was not a warrior seeking victory. It was a healer who had been forced to stop healing. 6 months after the Vorthic Empire's surrender, Fleet Admiral Lee Tae-hyan stood on the observation deck of the medical station, orbiting the former Vorthic homeworld. Through the transparent walls, she could see construction ships building new hospitals and medical schools on the planet below. The irony was not lost on her. Where once there had been weapons factories and military academies, now there were healing centers and universities teaching the art of preserving life rather than taking it. Admiral, her aide approached with a daily report. The latest class of Vorthic medical students has graduated. They are requesting assignment to the field hospitals on the Outer Rim. Lee nodded, reviewing the files. Former Vorthic soldiers, now trained as doctors and nurses, volunteering to serve in dangerous areas where their healing skills were most needed. It was exactly what humanity had hoped to achieve. Approve their requests, she said, and make sure they are paired with experienced human medical staff for the first year. The transformation had not been easy. When the Vorthic Empire surrendered, humanity had faced a choice. They could have occupied the territory, enslaved the population, or simply destroyed everything as revenge for the medical station attacks. Instead, they had chosen something more difficult and more human. Every Vorthic citizen was required to serve 5 years in medical training and practice. Those who had been soldiers were taught to heal instead of harm. Those who had been engineers learned to build hospitals instead of weapons. Those who had been leaders were trained in the ethics of preserving life. It was the largest forced education program in galactic history, and it was working. Dr. Yang Mi-Ray checked her patient roster as she prepared for another day in the new medical center on Vorthic Prime. She had been an executioner during the war, trained to disable and capture rather than kill. Now she was a healer again, which felt strange after months of hunting enemies through space. Her first patient was a young Vorthic who had been injured in a construction accident. His name was Kethver, and he had been a soldier in the old empires. Arnie, Dr. Yang, he said as she examined his injured arm, I have been thinking about something. What is that, Kethver? Why did you not kill us all? Your species had the power to destroy our entire civilization. Instead, you are teaching us to heal. Yang paused in her examination, considering the question. It was one she had been asked many times in recent months. "Because killing you would have been easy," she replied. "Teaching you to value life the way we do is much harder. But it is also much more powerful. I do not understand." Yang smiled and continued working on his arm. "Before the war, your empire conquered other species through force. You took their worlds and enslaved their people, but you never changed their hearts. They obeyed you because they were afraid, not because they believed in your cause." She finished bandaging his injury and stepped back. "Now, every Vorthik who completes medical training becomes someone who understands the value of life. When they return to their communities, they teach others. In a generation, your entire species will be transformed not by force, but by understanding." Kethver flexed his newly treated arm, marveling at how skillfully the human doctor had repaired the damage. "My brother says that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy because they can make their enemies want to become like them." Yang laughed. "Your brother is a smart person." Meanwhile, in the halls of the Galactic Council, Ambassador Park Hae-jin was presenting humanity's new terms for galactic citizenship. The council chamber was packed with representatives from every known species, all listening intently to her words. "The Terran Medical Corps will resume universal operations," she announced, "but under new conditions." She activated a holographic display showing human medical ships accompanied by sleek black escort vessels. "Any species that attacks human medical personnel will face immediate response from executioner units. There will be no warnings, no negotiations, and no mercy for those who choose to harm healers." A Zentari representative raised his hand. "Ambassador Park, are you threatening the galaxy?" "No," Park replied calmly. "We are making a promise. The same promise we made 50 years ago when we began healing your wounded and treating your sick. We promised to preserve life wherever we found it. Now we promise to protect those who preserve life." She paused, looking around the chamber. "The difference is that now you know what happens when that promise is broken." The vote was unanimous. Every species in the galaxy agreed to the new Terran Medical Protection Treaty. None wanted to face what the Vorthik had experienced. President Han Dong-Sik sat in his private office, reading reports from across human space. The war was over, but its consequences would be felt for generations. Humanity had revealed capabilities that had been hidden for 50 years. They had shown the galaxy that their compassion was matched by their capacity for overwhelming force. "Mr. President," his aide entered with an urgent message, "we have received a communication from the Andorian Federation. They are requesting immediate medical assistance for a plague outbreak on their colony worlds." Han nodded. "Dispatch Medical Fleet 7 immediately. Full escort." "Sir, the Andorians are offering to pay triple rates for our services. Tell them we do not charge for medical assistance." "We never have." His aide looked confused. "But sir, after what we have shown the galaxy, we could demand any price we wanted. Every species would pay." Han smiled sadly. "That is exactly why we do not charge. The moment we start selling our compassion, we become no different from those we fought against." On a medical station in the former Vorthik territory, children of different species played together in the corridors while their parents received treatment. Human, Vorthik, Zentari, and Andorian children laughed and ran together, unconscious of the historic significance of their friendship. In the shadows nearby, an executioner stood watch. Commander Ko Min-ho had returned to his medical duties, but he still wore the black armor that marked him as one of humanity's hidden guardians. His presence was a reminder and a promise. The children were safe. The healers were protected. And anyone who threatened either would face the full wrath of beings who understood both life and death better than any other species in the galaxy. Dr. Kim Tae-won's sacrifice had not been in vain. His death had awakened something in humanity that would protect healers for generations to come. The Vorthic attack on the medical stations had been intended as a display of power. Instead, it had become the foundation of a new galactic order where compassion was protected by strength, and mercy was enforced by those who had learned the terrible cost of its absence. Commander Vextar spent his days in a medical training facility, learning to save the lives he had once been so eager to take. It was his punishment and his redemption. Every life he saved was a small payment toward the debt he owed to the healers he had killed. He would never be forgiven, but he was learning to forgive himself by becoming what he had once destroyed. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or their ships or their technology. It was their ability to transform enemies into allies, hatred into understanding, and warriors into healers. But they had also learned that this transformation was protected by the most dangerous force in the known universe: humans who had been forced to abandon their compassion and were determined never to let it happen again. The medical stations flew their red crosses proudly, knowing that those symbols were no longer just marks of healing. They were warnings to anyone who might consider attacking those who dedicated their lives to preserving life. And in the darkness between the stars, the executioners waited patiently, ready to remind the galaxy why healers must never be harmed, that the age of protected compassion had begun.